Rain hammered against the glass walls of Ethan Maddox's downtown high-rise. The skyline of Chicago flickered behind him as he stared blankly at the signed contract on his desk. Another merger closed, another 8-figure deal, another victory, at least on paper. Yet it felt hollow. His once burning ambition was now a slow, dull ache. There was a time Ethan had dreamt differently. A future filled with laughter, warmth, someone to come home to. He once gave his heart freely to a woman he thought was his forever. But when love competed with wealth, she chose the zeros. She'd smiled while doing it. That betrayal had reshaped him. From that day, he stopped believing in softness. Love became a weakness. Feelings were a liability. And so, Ethan built walls. Not just metaphorically, but with real concrete and glass. Power replaced intimacy. Deals replaced dreams. And slowly, he convinced himself he liked it that way. But nights like these chipped at that illusion. Nights when the city was quiet and the echo of his own thoughts grew too loud. Midnight had come and gone. The city slept. But Ethan sat in his office, fingers wrapped around a half-empty glass of scotch, his phone buzzing idly with unread emails. He ignored them. A light shuffle echoed down the hallway, a sound he'd come to recognize. Light, cautious footsteps. Then a voice. "Mr. Maddox?" He didn't look up. "You should be sleeping, Isabella." "I just finished the kitchen, saw the lights on, thought I'd check if you needed anything." Ethan finally turned, slowly, glass still in hand. Stood at the doorway, wrapped in a soft cardigan, her eyes gentle but alert. Isabella Flores. She'd worked in his penthouse for nearly a year. Quiet, efficient, polite, too careful. "Sit," he said after a beat, nodding at the chair across from him. She hesitated before obeying, her hands folded neatly in her lap, posture straight but not stiff. "You don't have to pretend," Ethan murmured, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. "To care." Her brows furrowed. "I'm not pretending." A low laugh escaped him. "Because I'm human? You work yourself numb, Mr. Maddox, and tonight you look like someone who hasn't slept in days. You've been watching me." "I notice things," she said quietly. Something shifted. Her presence, her calmness. It cut through the silence. Ethan poured another glass, then without speaking slid it toward her. Their fingers brushed. She didn't flinch. "I don't usually drink," she whispered. "Then why now?" "Because tonight feels like the kind of night you break your own rules." A half smile tugged at his lips. Dangerous, he thought. This was dangerous. She should have walked away. He should have let her. But neither moved. Instead, he reached out. Not for the drink, but for her. Their first kiss wasn't explosive. It was hesitant, unsure. A misstep in slow motion. But it spiraled, grew, deepened until mistakes blurred into hunger. By sunrise, the facade returned. Ethan rose without a word, slipping back into the persona of Chicago's most calculated billionaire. Isabella stirred beneath the sheets. "Ethan," she whispered. He froze. She'd said his name like it meant something. But Ethan wouldn't allow that. "Last night meant nothing," he said coldly, eyes not meeting hers. She withdrew, fingers clutching the sheets like armor. "Of course, Mr. Maddox." He hated how formal it sounded coming from her now. But it was safer that way. "I should go." "Good idea." She dressed in silence. He didn't watch her leave. When the door shut behind her, Ethan didn't flinch. He told himself it was the right choice. That's what he was good at, letting go. But a week later, in a tiny apartment on the city's south side, Isabella Flores clutched a plastic stick in her hand, the words "pregnant" flashing across the screen. No dramatic storm, no thunder, roll. Just a quiet, life-altering truth in a dim bathroom. Pregnant. Her knees buckled slightly. Ethan. Would he believe her? Would he even care? The answer came quick. No. He'd made himself clear. She wiped her face, straightened her shoulders. She wasn't someone who waited to be saved. She would do this alone, but she had to try first. A few days later, she stood in the grand lobby of Maddox Holdings, the massive glass tower making her feel smaller with every step. "I need to speak." "To Ethan Maddox," she told the receptionist. The woman didn't even blink. "Do you have an appointment?" "It's important. Tell him it's Isabella Flores." The receptionist picked up the phone, spoke briefly, then turned back to her. "Mr. Maddox is unavailable. I'll wait." "I'm afraid that won't be necessary." Before she could respond, another voice chimed in. "Miss Flores?" She turned to see a tall woman in designer heels and a tailored suit. Lila Vance, Ethan's assistant, sharp, poised, condescending. "I'm going to save you the embarrassment," Lila said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Maddox isn't interested in revisiting old flings." Isabella's stomach twisted. "You haven't even told him I'm here. Because I know his type, and you're not it." "I'm not here to—" "To what?" Lila snapped. "Claim a piece of him because of one night?" Isabella's voice trembled. "He has a right to know." Lila didn't flinch. "And he has a right not to care." Before we continue the story, if you're new here, please consider subscribing to our channel. It really helps us keep making stories like this. Isabella stood her ground for a few more seconds, then turned around and walked out of that building. For good. She never called again. The following months were brutal. Morning sickness, double shifts at a corner diner, aching feet and swollen ankles. She scraped by. She saved every dollar. She bought diapers instead of dinner some nights. And when the time came, she gave birth alone. 3 cries echoed through. The delivery room, Leo, Noah, and Sophie Triplets, her miracles. She held them close and made them a silent vow. "I will never let you feel unwanted." Not like I was. She meant it, and Ethan Maddox would never know. Julian Reyes had never really left Isabella's side, not since they were kids racing bikes through alleyways, scraping knees and sharing dreams too big for the neighborhood they came from. So the moment he got the call, the moment he heard she was in labor, Julian didn't hesitate. He skipped a client meeting, caught a red-eye flight, and burst into the hospital with coffee in hand and a grin wider than the sky. "Let me hold." He whispered, breathless and excited as he entered the room. Isabella looked up from her hospital bed, exhausted and pale but smiling softly. "I don't think you're certified," she teased. "I've held a baby once," he said, confidently. "The baby only cried for 10 minutes, that counts, right?" She laughed under her breath and gently passed him little Sophie. Julian cradled her like fragile glass, swaying slightly. "You're looking at your favorite uncle, little peanut. It's destiny." "You're her only uncle," Isabella smirked. "Exactly. So I win by default." That was Julian, her constant. Through months of aching backs and broken paychecks, he was the one who came over after long shifts. He fixed leaky pipes. He babysat when she had to cover double shifts. And he listened, really listened, when the walls of her tiny apartment felt like they were closing in. "You've got this, Bella," he told her more than once. "You're stronger than you think." The years blurred forward like a fast-moving train. Leo, Noah, and Sophie grew into talkative, curious little beings, full of life and wonder. And despite everything she feared, they never once asked why. Their last name wasn't Maddox. Isabella worked like gravity, quiet and relentless. 3 jobs, late nights, clipping coupons, saying no to things she couldn't afford. But she never let them feel poor. She gave them birthday cupcakes and Saturday park days. She gave them a life full of color and laughter. They didn't miss a thing, or so she thought. She convinced herself she'd never see Ethan again. But fate had its own timeline. It was a Wednesday night, the kind of night that felt pulled from a movie. Ethan Maddox was seated at a long table in a rooftop restaurant laughing, well, pretending to, while his investors toasted him with overpriced bourbon and empty compliments. "To the man who makes gold out of dirt," one of them cheered. Ethan raised his glass out of politeness. He didn't care about the praise. The whole thing felt like theater now. Another win, another dinner. Another night he'd forget by morning. And then, he saw her. He thought maybe he was hallucinating. Maybe. The scotch had finally broken his brain. But no, there she was, Isabella Flores, seated just a few tables away beneath soft golden lighting, wearing a simple black dress that didn't ask for attention but somehow commanded all of his. Her hair was longer now, her posture straighter. She didn't look timid anymore. She looked shakeable, and she wasn't alone. 3 children sat beside her, 2 boys and a girl. They weren't fidgeting like most kids at restaurants. They were laughing, talking, behaving like they belonged there. And Ethan's heart began to beat in places he didn't know still worked. Because something about the boy on the left, Noah, he'd later learn, felt hauntingly familiar. The sharp jawline, the restless hands tapping against the table like he couldn't wait for something to happen. The girl, Sophie, tilted her head when she was listening, just like Ethan always did. And the third, Leo, reserved, quiet, but his eyes. Those were Ethan's eyes, same piercing blue, same calculating stillness. A cold chill ran through Ethan's spine. They looked like him, all 3 of them. His body moved before his mind did. He pushed his chair back, barely hearing the screech against the hardwood. Someone called his name, maybe an investor, but he ignored it. He walked across the restaurant like a man possessed. When he reached the table, Isabella looked up. Her face didn't flinch. She didn't blink or gasp. She met his eyes with calm indifference, as if he were a stranger interrupting dinner. "Ethan," she said evenly, "are you planning to stand there all night, or are you going to say something?" He swallowed hard. His throat was dry. "They're mine," he rasped. She took a small sip of her water before setting the glass down, her hands folded in front of her. "Yes," she said simply. His heart dropped to the floor. "You didn't tell me." "I tried." Before he could ask more, a small voice pierced the tension. "Dad?" Ethan froze, but the voice wasn't aimed at him. The boy, Leo, was talking to Julian, who sat next to Isabella with the ease of someone who belonged there. Ethan's stomach twisted with something he didn't recognize at first. Jealousy, rage, panic. He stepped forward. "What's going on here?" Julian let out a breath and glanced at Isabella like they had rehearsed this moment 100 times. "Maybe not the place," he muttered. "Don't you dare," Ethan snapped, turning to Isabella. "You let them call him that?" Isabella didn't flinch. "They needed a father. Julian was there. You weren't." Those words hit like gunfire. "You think I wanted this?" Ethan hissed. "You think I knew?" "I sent letters. I called. Leela made it clear you had no interest in hearing from me." He blinked. Lila, his assistant, she wasn't lying. He remembered. There was a time when his policy was no contact with former staff. He'd signed off on it. Regret sank like a stone in his stomach. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "Would it have mattered?" Isabella asked softly. "Would you have stayed?" He couldn't answer, because back then, he wouldn't have. He knew it, and so did she. "I want to be in their lives," he said, firmer now. "No," Ethan flinched. "Excuse me? You don't get to drop back in and play dad just because it's convenient now," she said. "You left." "I didn't." "No," he shot back. "But you would have left anyway," she whispered. Before he could respond, someone from his table called to him. His investors were waiting. But none of that mattered. Not anymore. When he turned back to her, Isabella was already walking away, her 3 children beside her, her back straight, her hand gripping Leo's. And Ethan stood there, not as a billionaire, not as a man in control, but as a stranger who had just learned what he lost. Sleep never found Ethan that night. He paced the floor of his penthouse like a prisoner in a cage, haunted by 3 small faces that mirrored his own. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw Sophie's bright smile, Noah's quiet stare, and Leo's suspicious glare. He had children, not just 1, but 3. And he hadn't been there for their first words, their first steps, their scraped knees, or birthday candles. At dawn, without even changing out of the wrinkled shirt he'd slept in, Ethan grabbed his keys and drove through a part of town he hadn't seen in years. It was different here. Modest homes, bicycles tossed across driveways, children drawing on sidewalks with chalk. The air smelled like morning toast and cut grass, not polished leather and imported coffee. When Isabella opened the front door, surprise flickered across her face. That quickly hardened into guarded resolve. "Ethan," she said flatly, "what are you doing here?" "I need to talk," he said, trying not to sound desperate. "Please." She studied him, eyes scanning his face for sincerity. After a tense moment, she stepped aside, allowing him in. Inside the modest home, sunlight poured through the windows, highlighting crayon drawings taped on the fridge and toys scattered across the living room floor. Ethan took a slow breath, letting the scene sink in. These were his children's fingerprints on the walls. Their laughter echoed faintly from the backyard. Small footsteps approached, and then all three children appeared in the hallway. Leo in front, standing like a mini soldier, Noah hanging back, and Sophie gripping a teddy bear almost half her size. "You remember Mr. Maddox from yesterday?" Isabella said gently. Leo's eyes narrowed. "We already have a dad, Julian." The name hit Ethan like a brick. He forced a nod, crouching to their level. "I know," he said softly, "and I'm thankful Julian's been there for you. I'm not here to take anything away. I'd like to get to know you, if that's okay." Leo didn't answer. He folded his arms, jaw clenched. Sophie tilted her head. "Are you really our dad?" Ethan smiled, heart pounding. "Yes," he whispered. "I am." Leo stepped in front of his sister protectively. "We don't need another one." Ethan stayed calm. "That's okay," he said. "You don't have to decide anything right now." Then Noah spoke up for the first time. "Why weren't you here?" The question sliced through Ethan like a blade. "Because I didn't know you existed," he answered, voice tight. "And once I found out, I knew I had to be here." The silence that followed felt heavy, like a test. Isabella broke it. "Kids, why don't you go outside for a bit?" When they were gone, her eyes locked on Ethan's. "You can't come and go as you please," she warned. "They're not accessories. They're not extensions of your guilt." "I know," he said. "That's not why I'm here." "Then why now?" "Because I know what I've lost, and I'm not going to lose it again." Her voice wavered. "They're not just going to let you in, Ethan." Leo's angry. Noah is cautious. And Sophie, she trusts too easily. "You break that and she'll never recover." "Then I won't break it," he promised. "I'll do whatever it takes." She studied him, still skeptical. "You want to be part of their lives? Then prove it. Not just today. Not for a week, every single day." "I will," he said without flinching. She nodded once, almost imperceptibly. "We'll see." From that moment on, Ethan started showing up. He took Noah to school presentations, sat through Leo's soccer practices, and listened to Sophie's endless stories about her imaginary friends. When Noah struggled with fractions, Ethan stayed, up helping him until the numbers finally clicked. When Sophie had a nightmare, he answered her call at 3 a.m. and read her a bedtime story over speakerphone. It wasn't perfect. Leo tested him constantly. Cold silences, snide remarks, walls thicker than concrete. But Ethan never pushed. He showed up again and again and waited for those walls to crack. Sophie warmed to him first. She ran into his arms during pickup, gave him stickers for his briefcase, and drew crayon portraits of their new family. Noah followed next, quieter, more calculated, but he asked questions about Ethan's job, his favorite color, his dog as a kid, and Leo. Leo made him work for it. But every time Ethan clapped at a game or helped him tie his cleats, Leo's scowl faded a little more. Isabella watched all of it with cautious eyes. She didn't let him cross certain lines. Not yet. But she noticed the way her children were starting to lean on him. The way Ethan showed up despite business calls and boardroom drama. "You're not making it easy for me," she said one night as Ethan tucked Sophie into bed. "That's the idea," he replied with a smile. "I'm not trying to make this easy. I'm trying to make it right." She crossed her arms, leaning against the doorway. I want to believe you. Then let me keep proving it. And he did. A week later, he made a decision that surprised even himself. He sold the penthouse, the same one that overlooked half the city, the tower he once called his throne. And instead, he bought a house, just 3 blocks from Isabella's. No high-tech gadgets, no marble statues or private elevators. Just a warm place with a swing set in the yard and room for 3 kids to run wild. When Isabella saw it, she blinked. You did this for them? For them, Ethan confirmed. And for me. She didn't say anything, but she didn't object either. Not everyone was thrilled by Ethan's new life, especially not his mother. Barbara Maddox had spent decades building the Maddox name into a legacy of prestige and profit. To her, Ethan's choice wasn't just baffling, it was betrayal. So when she showed up at Isabella's door one morning, unannounced and polished, in her white linen suit, Isabella knew it wasn't a courtesy visit. Barbara stepped inside without asking. I expected something smaller, she said with a tight smile. Isabella stayed calm. What do you want, Mrs. Maddox? Barbara slid a checkbook onto the table. To give you an opportunity. Isabella's eyes narrowed. Excuse me? You've done a fine job on your own, Barbara said with feigned sweetness. But this isn't the life you want for them. Let Ethan come back to his world. Give the children the life they deserve. Private schools, security, power. Name your price. Isabella didn't blink. She picked up the checkbook, ripped it clean in half, and let the pieces fall between them. My children aren't for sale. Barbara stood, her expression hardening. This isn't over. No, Isabella replied, voice steady. But it is for you. Ethan didn't wait to confront his mother. The moment Isabella told him what happened, he got in his car and drove straight to the Maddox estate. A monument to legacy and cold ambition. He didn't knock when he entered her study. Barbara looked up from her tea, calm as always, but Ethan was already storming across the room. How dare you, he said, voice low but filled with fury. How dare you walk into their home and try to buy her off? Barbara barely flinched. I was protecting you. Protecting me? He echoed, incredulous. You tried to erase my children. They aren't your legacy, Ethan, she said coolly. They're her burden. And if you stay tangled in it, they'll be your downfall. You don't get to decide that, he snapped. You never did. Barbara leaned back, studying him. The Maddox name carries weight. You're prepared to throw it away for, what, some girl who used to scrub your kitchen floor? I'm not throwing anything away, he shot back. I'm finally choosing what matters. She folded her hands neatly. Then you leave me no choice. I'll go to court. Petition for full custody. You know as well as I do that a judge will see a single mother with no assets versus a stable, powerful family. Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. You wouldn't dare. I would, Barbara said, standing. You want to play father? Fine, but not at the cost of this family. He looked at her like he didn't recognize her anymore. You never loved me. You just shaped me. You made me into a weapon for your empire. Barbara didn't deny it. Because love is weakness, and I raised you to win. Well, I'm done winning your way. He walked out without another word. The doors of the estate closed behind him like a coffin. Back in Isabella's world, life tried to return to normal, but the threat of legal action lingered like a storm cloud. Ethan stayed present, calm, refusing to let it show. He continued, showing up for the kids, but Isabella grew more guarded. She'd let him in once. Now she wasn't sure she should have. The local school fair was coming up, and Isabella agreed, reluctantly, to let Ethan tag along. The kids were thrilled. Sophie made him wear a glittery flower crown she'd crafted herself. Noah insisted he win a prize at the ring toss. Leo didn't say much, but he allowed Ethan to hoist him onto his shoulders to see the magician. And then, in one heartbeat, the perfect day unraveled. Isabella turned for just a second, to grab napkins for cotton candy, and when she looked back, Noah's face had gone pale. Mom, he said, panicked. Leo's gone. Her chest clenched. What do you mean he's gone? He said he was going to see the balloon guy, but he's not there anymore. Her breath caught. "Leo!" she shouted, spinning. Her eyes swept the crowded fairground. Families everywhere, booths, laughter, chaos. Ethan was already moving, scanning the field with precision. "Check the playground, I'll search the parking lot." Isabella didn't argue, she ran. Her lungs burned as she called Leo's name again and again. Her thoughts spiraled. Was he alone? Was he scared? Was someone with him? Then her phone buzzed. Ethan's name. "I found him," he said, "behind the school. He's okay." She ran like her legs didn't belong to her. When she arrived, Leo was curled into Ethan's arms, face buried in his jacket, sobbing. Ethan was kneeling, one arm protectively wrapped around him. When Leo saw her, he bolted into her embrace. "Didn't mean to get lost," he cried, his voice shaking. "I was just gonna look." "I know, baby," she whispered, holding him close. "Just don't do it again. You scared me so much." Leo turned back to Ethan, wiped his eyes, and hesitated. Then, in the quietest voice, he whispered, "Daddy." Ethan's breath caught. It was the first time, after all the walls, all the silence, Leo had said it. Ethan knelt lower, wrapping his arms around the boy again. "Yeah, buddy," he whispered, voice thick. "I'm right here." From a few steps away, Isabella watched them, watched the son who'd never let anyone in finally reach out. And that's when it hit her. They needed him, it terrified her. That evening, the weight of it pressed on her. She stood on the front porch, arms crossed, as Ethan helped the kids into pajamas. Her chest was tight with doubt. He had done everything right. He had stayed. He had shown up. But trust, real trust, still came hard for her. When the kids were asleep, she called him outside. Ethan looked up at her, confused. "Everything okay?" "I need to ask you something," she said, voice steady. "What do you want out of this? Is this temporary? Is it a phase? Because if you're going to walk out again, I need to know now." Ethan blinked, wounded. "You think I'd leave now?" "I don't want to believe that," she said. "But I have to protect them." He stepped closer, the porch light casting soft shadows on his face. "I'm not leaving. Not now. Not ever." "You said that once," she reminded him. "I was. A different man then. I thought I knew what mattered. I didn't." Still, she hesitated. "If there's any part of you," she said, voice almost breaking, "any part that thinks this might be a mistake, just go. Walk away." He didn't flinch. "No. I mean it, Ethan. So do I." He reached for her hand, hesitant, waiting for her to pull away. But she didn't. Their fingers touched, and something deep in her chest softened. Just a little. "I know I don't deserve it yet," he said, "but I'm going to earn it, too." That night, he stayed. Not just physically. Through soccer drop-offs, late-night stomach bugs, bedtime stories, and scraped knees, he stayed. Through Leo's mistrust and Noah's quiet study and Sophie's endless hugs, he stayed. Each day, he carved himself deeper into their lives, not as a guest, not as a visitor, but as someone permanent. And Isabella began to believe him. Ethan's presence became as normal as breakfast and bedtime. He was there for school drop-offs, weekend pancakes, and last-minute science project runs. When Noah forgot his lines in the school play, Ethan helped him rehearse. When Leo twisted his ankle during soccer, Ethan carried him to the car without hesitation. Sophie brought home best hugger stickers from kindergarten and proudly slapped one on Ethan's chest. Bit by bit, day by day, he became part of their world. Not just as a name or a face, but as someone who mattered. Isabella tried to keep her guard up. She really did. But watching Ethan brush paint into Sophie's hair instead of her canvas or fall asleep on the couch after reading Noah 3 chapters of a bedtime book, those moments broke through the armor she'd built. And the worst part? He didn't even realize he was winning her over. That made it harder to fight. Still, one part of her clung to caution, because happiness, she knew, was fragile. And history had taught her what happened when she trusted it too easily. Then it happened. She found the ticket. It was sitting on the kitchen counter when she came home from work early. An airline itinerary with Ethan's name on it. A first class, seat one way, the date 2 days from now. Her blood ran cold. Her stomach twisted into a knot. She had known, deep down, this was temporary. She had just started to believe it could be more. And now, this? Mommy. Sophie's voice called softly from the hallway. Leo said Daddy's leaving. Is that true? Isabella forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Go play with your brothers, sweetheart. As soon as Sophie left, she stormed out back where Ethan and Noah were kicking a soccer ball in the grass. Her jaw was tight, her fists clenched. Ethan turned when he saw her, smile fading instantly. What's wrong? She didn't say a word. Instead, she pulled the ticket from her pocket and threw it at his feet. It fluttered once, then landed on the lawn between them like a challenge. Ethan bent to pick it up. His face went pale the second he saw it. Explain, she demanded, arms folded tight across her chest. Don't lie to me. I wasn't going to, he said quickly. Just give me a second, she laughed bitterly. That's all it takes, right? 1 second to change your mind and walk away again? I'm not walking away. Oh, really? She pointed to the ticket. Then what is that? Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. It's from my mother. She bought it. She wants me to leave, says I'm wasting my life here, ruining everything. I knew it, Isabella whispered. Her voice cracked. I knew this was too good to last. It's not what you think, he insisted. I didn't ask for that ticket. I didn't pack. I wasn't going anywhere. But you didn't. Tell me, she shot back. You hid it. Why? Because I didn't want to scare you. Well, congratulations, she said through clenched teeth. I'm terrified. The silence between them stretched, taut and trembling. I should have never let you in again, she said quietly. I should have protected them better. You are protecting them, Ethan said. That's all you've ever done. Then go, she whispered. If this is still something you're undecided about, go. I won't stop you this time. He took a step forward. Isabella, please. No, she said, louder this time. Go. And this time she was the one turning her back. He didn't. Try to follow. The rain came that night, thick and punishing. Ethan stood outside her house, soaked through, staring at the closed door. He didn't knock. He didn't text. He just stood there, shoulders slumped, waiting for the pain in his chest to go away. It didn't. Hours passed, and finally, the door creaked open. Isabella stepped out onto the porch, arms crossed, hair damp, wrapped in a sweater. You're still here, she said softly. It wasn't anger this time. It wasn't cold, just disbelief. Ethan nodded, too tired to speak. You're insane, she muttered. Probably, he replied with a faint smile. But I'm not leaving. Her jaw clenched, and then, suddenly, her eyes filled with tears. She tilted her head, back trying to blink them away, but it was too late. They fell, quiet and steady. You stayed, she whispered. He stepped closer, hesitant. You have no idea how badly I needed you to stay back then, she said. You have no idea how much it broke me that you didn't. I know, he whispered, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. And then she stepped forward. Just one small step, then another, until her forehead was pressed to his. Chest and her hands clutched the fabric of his rain-soaked shirt. He held her, gently at first, then tighter, because she didn't pull away. And in that quiet moment, standing in the storm, Isabella finally let go of what he had done to her. And Ethan held on to everything he'd nearly lost. The auditorium buzzed with anticipation, filled with chatter, camera flashes, and the rustling of proud parents adjusting in plastic folding chairs. Colorful paper banners hung across the stage. Happy Father's Day, written in uneven, crayon-bright letters. Ethan sat in the third row, his suit jacket folded on his lap, his palms damp with nerves. It felt ridiculous. He had closed. Billion-dollar deals, stood in front of boardrooms packed with analysts and critics, and never once had his heart beat as fast as it did now. Beside him, Isabella sat with her arms crossed, pretending to scroll through her phone. But he noticed her tapping fingers and the way she kept stealing glances at the stage. She was nervous too. Ethan leaned closer, whispering, "Do you think they'll say anything?" She gave him a look that could have meant 100 things. Hope, worry, maybe even warning. The lights dimmed. A teacher stepped to the microphone and smiled. "Welcome everyone to our annual Father's Day celebration. Today, our students are honoring the special father figures in their lives." Polite. Applause followed. Ethan's hands gripped the seat in front of him. One by one, the children took the stage, some bashful, some bold. They read little speeches, offered handmade cards, and called out, "I love you, Dad," with innocent joy. A few fathers wiped their eyes. Laughter filled the gaps between presentations. And then, it was Sophie's turn. Ethan held his breath as she walked to the mic, clutching a small piece of paper in her hand. Her braids bounced as she moved, and her sparkly sneakers squeaked faintly on the wooden floor. "My name is Sophie Reyes," she began, her voice trembling but determined. "And I want to talk about someone special, someone who wasn't always there, but who never stopped trying to be." Ethan felt his throat tighten. He didn't get to see my first steps or help me lose my first tooth. "He missed a lot," she continued, pausing for a deep breath. "But he's here now, and every day he shows me and my brothers how much he loves us. That's why my dad is Ethan Maddox." The room fell silent. Ethan sat frozen. His ears rang with those last 5 words. "My dad is Ethan Maddox." Then Noah stepped up beside his sister. "Yeah," he added quietly, almost too soft for the microphone. "He's our dad, too." And finally, Leo. Arms crossed, jaw tense, eyes scanning the audience like he wanted to bolt. He didn't speak at first, just stared at Ethan, daring him to flinch. Then slowly, without looking away, he gave the smallest nod. It was enough. Tears blurred Ethan's vision. He stood up, barely registering that people were watching. He didn't care. He just placed his hand over his heart, meeting the eyes of his 3 children. Sophie smiled like sunlight. Noah gave a shy wave. And Leo? Leo didn't look away. From the corner of his eye, Ethan saw Isabella quietly wipe a tear. She didn't hide it this time. A few months later, summer wrapped the city in warm, golden light. School was out. Ice cream trucks sang through the streets, and the beach was alive with squeals and splashing water. Ethan stood ankle-deep in the surf, watching Leo, Noah, and Sophie dart between waves. They'd been at it for over an hour, building sandcastles, burying each other in sand, daring the waves to catch them. Sophie ran over, holding a seashell to the sun. "Daddy, do you think mermaids live in these?" Ethan knelt beside her, brushing her hair away from her cheek. "Maybe. But if they do, you have to promise to keep their secret." Her eyes lit up as she nodded solemnly. "I won't tell anyone." "Cross my heart." He pulled her into a hug. The word daddy still did something to him every time. "Watch this," Noah shouted behind them. He flung a stone across the water. It skipped twice before sinking. "That's not skipping," Ethan teased. "That's bouncing." "Your turn." He picked a flat rock, gave it a flick. 1, 2, 3, 4 skips before it dropped. "Now that's a skip." Noah's mouth dropped open. "No fair. Beginner's luck." "Please," Leo muttered nearby, smirking. "You've been here all summer." Ethan caught the smile. Just a flash of it. But enough to know Leo was warming up, slowly, carefully. But it was happening. Isabella stood further back, wearing a sundress and sunglasses, arms folded as she watched them. There was something softer in her now, a peace he hadn't seen in years. He walked over. "They wore me out," he said, smiling. "Good," she replied. "They needed this, all of it." They stood in silence for a while, the sound of the ocean, filling the gaps between words. Then Ethan spoke. "I've been thinking, the kids, they've always had your last name, and I respect that. I do. But I'd love for them to have mine too, if they want it." Isabella looked at him, not startled, but reflective. She turned her gaze toward the shoreline. "You should ask them." He nodded and walked back to where the kids were chasing each other near the dunes. He dropped to one knee and called them over. "There's something I want to ask you guys," he began. and it's totally up to you. But, would you want to have my last name too? Maddox. Or maybe Reyes Maddox. Whatever you choose, Sophie gasped. We could? Ethan nodded. Only if you want to. Nothing else changes. I'll still love you the same. Noah turned to Leo, waiting. Sophie hugged him immediately. I want to be Sophie Reyes Maddox. Me. Do. Noah grinned. All eyes turned to Leo. He hesitated, scanned Ethan's face for any sign of doubt, and then slowly he stuck out his hand. Okay, he said, but don't screw it up. Ethan laughed softly, shaking the boy's hand, then pulling all three into a tight hug. He didn't even realize he was crying until Sophie wiped his cheek. From a distance, Isabella watched them. Her arms no longer crossed, her guard no longer raised. And this time when she smiled, it wasn't cautious. It wasn't measured, it was real. Because Ethan Maddox wasn't just claiming the kids, he was claiming his family. Time passed, and with it came new routines, new rhythms, and a quieter kind of happiness. Ethan no longer measured success by deal, closings, or market trends, but by bedtime giggles, crayon drawings stuck to the fridge, and whispered good nights from 3 children who now called him Dad without hesitation. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't perfect, but it was real. And it was his. Isabella found herself watching him more often. Really watching him. She saw the way he showed up even when he looked exhausted. How he never missed a school conference or a dentist appointment. How he remembered Sophie's favorite stuffed animal, Noah's bedtime facts about space, and exactly how Leo liked his grilled cheese. There were still moments she questioned it all. Still quiet fears that maybe he'd wake up one day and remember who he used to be. But every time that doubt crept in, Ethan did something, small or simple, that silenced it again. And then, late one evening, he did something else. They were sitting outside, the kids already asleep, the porch wrapped in the soft hush of twilight. Fireflies blinked lazily in the distance. Ethan leaned forward, elbows on his knees, silent for a long moment before finally speaking. I never thought this would be my life, he said. Not in a million years. But now, I can't imagine. Anything else? Isabella sipped her tea. You used to chase things. Now you plant roots. I guess I found something worth growing. A soft smile touched her lips. I have one more question, he added, voice lower now, uncertain. And you don't have to answer tonight. She turned to him. Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Her breath caught. He didn't open it yet, just held it between them. I'm not the man you once knew. I'll never pretend the past didn't happen. But I love this family. I love you. And if you ever decide to say yes, I'll be right here, her heart stammered. That's not a small question. I know, he said gently. But I'm not asking for a perfect answer. Just an honest one. Someday. She didn't answer. Not then. But she didn't hand the box back either. She held it quietly in her hands as they sat side by side, saying nothing and everything at once. Weeks later, the triplets were preparing for their first family photo shoot. Real portraits, matching outfits, coordinated chaos. Sophie insisted on sparkles. Noah wanted his hair to spike. Leo, of course, pretended not to care, but he snuck extra gel into his comb anyway. They posed in the park. The sun lit the tops of the trees like gold. Isabella stood beside Ethan, her hand brushing his lightly. The kids clung to them, arms overlapping, cheeks pressed together in one goofy, perfect mess. And the camera clicked, capturing not a fairy tale, not a fantasy, but a family. That photo would hang in Ethan's office someday, not in his corporate tower, but in the home filled with laughter and soccer balls, spilled juice and midnight stories. A home that smelled like real life. Years from now, no one would remember how much money he made that quarter, or which investor lunch he skipped. But his kids would remember the man who chose them, who stayed when it mattered, who became the father they needed, not because he had to, but because he finally wanted to be. At a charity gala that winter, one Ethan only attended because the Kids begged to see the lights. Someone approached him. An old acquaintance, polished, smug, wearing a smirk that suggested the world still revolved around private jets and trust funds. "I heard you moved out to the suburbs," the man said. "Traded your penthouse for PTA meetings?" Ethan smiled. "Best deal I ever made." The man laughed, thinking it was a joke. Ethan didn't correct him, because the truth didn't need to be explained to anyone else. He wasn't the man who needed to prove anything anymore. He was Ethan Maddox, a father, a partner, a man who once walked away from love and found his way back, not by chance, but by choice. And as he returned to his table, where Sophie was stealing cupcakes, Noah was trying to explain gravitational pull to a confused donor, and Leo was rolling his eyes at them both. Isabella looked up and met his gaze. There it was again. That real smile. She reached for his hand beneath the table, fingers lacing with his, and Ethan knew, without a doubt, he was finally home. Before we wrap up, if you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to our channel and let us know your favorite moment in the comments. It helps us bring you more heartfelt stories like this.